Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Digital Marketing Strategies for the 2022 Festive Season. My name is Alexandra Pontikis, and I'm part of the marketing team here at StackAdapt. Before getting started, we have some housekeeping items to cover, and then we can get the webinar underway. So we're happy to answer any question you might have on any of the content. Please feel free to place them in the questions area of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll address all questions at the end of our session during the Q&A. And if there are any questions we're not able to address during the session, we'll follow up directly after the webinar. Just a quick note, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared shortly after we end. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenters to get us started. Over to you, Kat and Reina.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everybody. So again, thank you for joining us today. In this session, my colleague Reina and I are going to be talking you through some key strategies for the upcoming festive season, as well as diving into some market insights and creative tools that are going to help you plan and activate a successful campaign. So my name, as you can see, is Kat Duffield. I'm team lead and senior sales manager here at StackAdapt. I've been at the company over a year and actually have quite a lengthy background in advertising, having split my experience fairly evenly now between publisher side and ad tech. So it's given me great exposure to the majority of digital advertising mediums, including all channels within programmatic, likes of YouTube, bespoke video content builds, sponsorships, etc.
Hi everyone, my name is Reina Roberts. It's great to be hosting this session today. I'm a bilingual senior sales manager here at StackAdapt, so I mainly work with clients who are based out of the UK and France, but we do run campaigns across a broad range of markets within EMEA, as well as other international markets too. Prior to StackAdapt, I worked at another DSP that specialized in contextual targeting, so my experience is very much on the vendor side of the programmatic landscape.
So just a quick summary of who StackAdapt is for those of you that are new to our business or haven't come across us before. StackAdapt was born out of Toronto, Canada, back in 2013, and is still very much our kind of hub office. As the company's grown, obviously the industry's evolved, our offering and capabilities have increased significantly, and we're a global multi-channel DSP. So we tap into all major supply sources across the likes of display, native video, CTV, audio, and also most recently in-game. In the past couple of years, we've seen significant growth as a company. Just to put this in some sort of context and using EMEA as an example, when the UK office opened, I think at the end of 2020, as EMEA headquarters, there was just a team of 6. So just over 18 months later, we're now at 85 plus and growing weekly. So the agenda for today, the webinar is going to be broken out into 4 main areas for you. First of all, Reina is going to be taking us through some of the retail trends and forecasted statistics for Q4, and I'll just be adding some additional insights based on past campaign data for you. We're then going to look at the benefits of investing in your marketing. We'll be looking at more statistical data to give you some top planning tips for the quarter, followed by a walkthrough of some of our best ad units that can provide the perfect environment to deliver your KPIs. As we wrap up, Reina and I will then take any questions you might have as well. So let's get into this. Reina, over to you to kick off part 1 of retail trends and insights for the remainder of 2022.
Thanks, Kat. So starting on a positive point, the good news is that despite news of economic uncertainty, sales forecasts for the retail sector in the UK are still projecting an upward trend. So as a retailer looking at this graph, how can we make sure that we're getting a piece of that pie and being a part of this projected growth instead of missing out? To do so, I think it's really important for us to understand what some of the key market drivers are that have been fueling this trend. So at first glance, none of this information on this slide is new or kind of groundbreaking, but we marketers do love to throw around some good buzzwords. So I really want to take some time to break down each of these points and what that really means for your programmatic strategies ahead of this festive season. Number 1, the death of the cookie has been a long time coming, and it keeps getting pushed down the road from a Google perspective, but the issue of privacy online is not going anywhere. It's also not just unique to the EU or GDPR or even Google. So we're seeing similar regulations out of other markets like the US or even Brazil. And just in general, consumers are much more switched on about their online presence and their kind of online data. We're even seeing players like Apple who are really doubling down on privacy and making this a core brand value of theirs. And with personalization being such a big component of successful digital presence for retailers, the deprecation of third-party cookies has really driven a push towards first-party data collection as well as contextual strategies. We're also starting to hear a lot more about zero-party data, which is information that a user is willfully sharing with you, such as, product preference or buying intentions that they want you to know about so that you can give them that personalized experience. The usage of first-party data to inform campaigns will be a large component of successful festive campaigns, and contextual strategies have also been key to fill the void of third-party cookies, as this is really allowing retailers to target users when they're in the right frame of mind in real time. So by the way, little asterisks, contextual doesn't just need to be based on the content that's being consumed. It can be any real-time trigger that is impacting the user's behavior. So even things like seasonality, time of day, time of week, or even current weather triggers. Number two, the shift from physical to online retail also is not new and definitely was something that was accelerated by the pandemic. But even now that we are back to normal in quotation marks, this trend persists. So really ensuring that your online presence provides as seamless of an experience as possible is a must. With that means you really want to make sure that you're clued up on your attribution and your tracking methodologies so that you're ensuring you're not missing out on any key information that's either coming from your digital strategies, from a marketing perspective, or even your online sales. And number three, of course, where consumers go, the marketing budgets follow. The shift from in-store shopping to online shopping is certainly reflected by how marketing budgets are being spent. There was a study that was released by eMarketer this past June that showed that UK consumers spend nearly 2 hours or more they spend nearly 2 hours more consuming digital media versus traditional media. So this has really opened up an opportunity for retailers to provide that holistic online, offline brand experience in order to increase their share of markets. And it's something that's really important for you to consider in terms of how you're approaching this trend as well. Next, I do want to take a little bit of time to focus on the elephant in the room, which is that we are in a period of economic uncertainty, and this is going to have an impact on how consumers are shopping. So mainly we're going to see buyers being a lot more cautious. They're going to be researching before they make purchases, things like spending time on price comparison websites, etc. So you really want to use this as an opportunity. Some retailers will not be, and that really opens up a space for your brand to make sure that you're amplifying your product's value to consumers, whether that's a price-based value or something else. So for example, I was pretty surprised when I first looked at this slide to see that fashion was trending higher than holidays, for example. But I think this really goes back to understanding your audience. So these days, consumers care a lot more about where their products are being made and are they being made in a sustainable manner, things like that. They really want to make sure that the purchases that they are making, especially in this time of tightening the purse strings, that they match up with all their other values as well. So focus on your creatives and the messaging that you're putting out there, and capitalize on this moment of research ahead of key sale events like Black Friday to amplify all of your other product values and not just those cost-based ones.
Thanks, Rena. So there are a multitude of quotes from leaders in media across brands that have said something very similar to what you can see here. The takeaway is that by pulling your marketing or advertising budgets, you can't expect to not feel the impact of that further down the line. So often marketing budgets are the first to be tightened, but if you actually look at the bigger picture, what does that actually mean for the future of your business? If you create a bigger space for your competitors by stepping back, are you actually going to be in a position to claim back that territory in the future? Or has your client moved on with a new brand that has stayed present and more front of mind through the good and maybe the not so good? There's a lot of examples we could pull to demonstrate the importance of advertising during tough economic times. But I think it's really interesting to show that this isn't actually something that's only become more relevant now as digital has evolved. Because in actual fact, you can look back to the likes of the 1920s and reflect on how a brand like Kellogg's became the giant it is today. So rather than hold back spend, they actually doubled investment and leapfrogged over their competitors. So to this day, decades later, they still hold the crown as brand champions. And obviously that commitment that they made at a time which would have been seen quite high risk has actually paid off. Aside from customer retention and brand recognition, there are additional benefits to continuing to advertise during a slowdown. These can include the fact that the noise around you may actually quieten due to your competitors maybe reducing their presence. This can then result in even a more cost-efficient buying market due to there being less competition when bidding on inventory. The reality of today is that when your target audience sees your brand in market, it gives them peace of mind to see that your brand is still very much present. You've got to think that in times of uncertainty, we do tend to turn to the brands that we trust that are demonstrating a level of corporate stability. If you want to think about like the ones that you see advertising around, what brands are you more likely to commit to? What are going to be more front of mind at that moment? And just reflecting on Raina's point about that research element, it's just so key to ensure that your brand is still very much present. Now we're going to look into campaign planning and the importance of it as the festive season rapidly approaches.
Thanks, Kat. So just to start off here, firstly, we've highlighted some of the key dates that are coming up, which include Black Friday and Cyber Monday, of course. But this is by no means an exhaustive list at all. So once again, think about who your target audience is and how your brand aligns with some of these upcoming holidays, whether that's Christmas or Diwali or Hanukkah, or, even if there are any Americans on here like me who might consider Halloween a holiday. Personalize as much as you possibly can around these upcoming holidays. The main takeaway from this slide, though, really is that your planning should be well underway. So if you have not started yet, hopefully this webinar can enable you to take back some ideas to your team and really get started. I, of course, wouldn't be in sales if I didn't drop a shameless plug in here. If you haven't started anything and you really need some support, you can always reach out to your StackAdapt reps who are always happy to help. So now that we kind of have your planning calendar and some key dates laid out, here are some additional tips for you to consider. Number one, expect a longer shopping season. So the holiday season in 2021 started earlier than previous years, and we can expect to see the same thing now, especially as consumers will likely want to spread out costs leading up to the holidays, rather than having those, last minute shopping sprees, 2 weeks before the event. Number two, personalize your campaigns. I've mentioned this a couple times now already in the webinar. Leverage your first-party data insights to understand your audience, their needs, their wants, and integrate this information into your creatives rather than just pushing products to sell. You can also use this opportunity to collect more data by leveraging high-impact interactive creatives. Number three, lean on cookie-free tactics to fill the gaps from any kind of third-party data gaps, whether it's solutions like keyword or semantic matching on a page, or offline triggers like weather, time of week, time of day, just any way that you can kind of tap into the user's current frame of mind. Number four, this is an obvious one, but review your 2021 data. So what worked last year? What was a total flop? use some of that information to set up this year's strategy. But of course, you want to continue optimizing, based on that 2022 data that you start seeing once you have launched your campaign. And number 5 and number 6 are very similar to one another. Number 5, execute a multi-channel strategy. As much as lower funnel metrics are important during this season, you're going to be really hard pressed to see decent lower funnel results without having that solid upper and mid funnel tactics already in place. So ensure you're set up for success by aligning, lower funnel expectations with what you've been seeing in those higher stages of the funnel. And number 6, this actually is a pretty good segue onto the next slide. Think about where your audience consumes content. How is your target audience in consuming their content? How are you ensuring that you're meeting them in those areas of consumption? I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm a very typical millennial with a lot of online habits. So I watch TV, with my phone out. Sometimes I have my laptop out too. So it's really a kind of multi-screen experience. I consume both linear and CTV content, but I do tend to favor, CTV in general. I'll listen to podcasts and music when I'm doing chores or, walking my dog. And I even sometimes dabble in video games, though I'm by no means a gamer. But advertisers with me in mind have a really good opportunity to meet me in all of these environments to highlight their value propositions to me before I decide to make my key holiday purchases. So think about how you can apply the same thinking to your own strategies and contents and how that relates to your target audience and how they're consuming content. For the next section, Kat's going to go over some specific creative units that you can think about in order to drive that engagement and interaction that you want to see during the festive season.
Thanks, Rona. So first to kick off is actually dynamic retargeting. This is a powerful advertising solution, in my opinion, that can vary advertisements shown based on products a user has looked at, geographical location, and also past purchases. So with static retargeting, ads are displayed to users who have previously engaged with your brand to guide them back to your website. Retargeting is considered one of the most cost-effective advertising tactics that generates the highest return on investment and ensures your brand is top of mind for the consumer. With dynamic retargeting, we can do this on a pixel-based model rather than requiring a product feed as well. In addition to that, we also have our in-house specialists of the Creative Studios team, who, as you can see from some of the examples here, are actually able to design from you really unique ads for dynamic retargeting that can actually look and break down the examples rather than having your standard grey boxes that have to fill that you would normally have with a product feed on dynamic retargeting. We can actually split those out and make really good HTML5 formats for your dynamic retargeting element. Then going on to different ad units that are available. So examples here, we've actually got a huge multitude of ways that our in-house creative team can actually develop bespoke high-impact HTML5 formats to drive engagement, brand recognition. Examples that can be seen here in this include the likes of the carousel ad. So that's giving you the option to add multiple products that encourage the user to interact with the ad as they scroll through. The color palette can be used, it's used a lot with different motor brands, for example, but can be used for makeup, tons of different elements, whether you're like a paint brand, for example. Again, calling on the user to engage on the ad and product simultaneously. And of course, the countdown clock, perfect way to generate excitement around, say, an upcoming sale, a big product launch. I ran a bunch of these last year around build up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Boxing Day sales, etc. Then another set of examples for you here. So again, you've got the likes of a shoppable video that can be a great way to drive sales of specific products that you want to push to your audience. This could involve, let's say, a similar aspect to the carousel ad, but enabling users to click straight through to purchase. Gift ads, again, is a way of using a simple question of discovery approach with your audience to then deliver the product that is best suited dependent on the user's answer. Again, here you're ensuring that you're being even more targeted and getting the user to engage with the content within the format. A final creative option though, and by no means is this an extensive portfolio of what's available. There are even more HTML5 creative designs and functions available within StackAdapt that we'd happily share with you following this webinar. But here is actually using the in-banner video. So if you've already got video content available, we can then increase your reach by hosting this within your banner creative. So that actually brings us towards the end of today's session. And yeah, we just want to then jump into just some key takeaways for you. So what trends do you need to be conscious of in order to stay current and relevant? Are there opportunities here for you to capitalize on? If you haven't already, and as Raina's already mentioned earlier, get planning. Work with your partners internally, work with your partners like ourselves to strategize what channels and approach is going to get you to your goals for the quarter. Think about your end game, and then we can actually break down of how we're going to get there. Have you got a key list of sale dates or promotions that you want to focus on, key products that you want to drive? Have you got in mind a clear target audience and how you want to actually reach out to those people? If any of the creative examples we've just touched on align with your needs, how can we work with you to turn this around in time for, let's say, up and coming Black Friday? Again, as I said, we've got plenty more examples that we can share with you on this as well. And then finally, just to let you know, when we finish up here, you will receive a link to download our festive guide, which you may find a really useful resource. You can also find it in the handout panel of this webinar if you want to download it now. And that brings us to Q&A.
Thank you, Kat and Raina. That was super insightful. So yeah, we'll now like to jump into the Q&A portion of the webinar and open up the floor to any questions. And as a reminder, if you have any question, please place them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar panel. There are several questions coming through already, so just a heads up, if we're not able to get to yours today, not to worry, we'll follow up directly with you after the webinar. Okay, so first question, what's the best way to plan a successful retail campaign during a quite digitally crowded season?
I can jump in on this one. So first of all, it's a great question. I think there's a couple different ways or things that you want to consider for this. So mainly you're going to really want to make sure your scale is, your campaign is scalable. So using any kind of forecasting tools before you launch to get an idea of your audience scale, as well as taking into account any other triggers, such as if you're targeting any kind of specific geos or anything like that. So Q4 in general can be quite competitive. You really don't want to miss out just because your audience isn't scalable. So anywhere you can use kind of forecasting tools or anything like that will be probably the first place you want to start. As well as having a large enough audience pool, you do want to make sure that, I've said this before, you're present in all environments. So making sure that your creatives are mobile friendly and you're maximizing on the creative sizes that you have and formats. That will really help you leverage, that will really help you open up, inventory availability. And other ways that you really want to make sure, you're starting off with a success in mind is leveraging your CRM audiences, your first party data, whether that's a CRM list or an on-site pixel, to create lookalike audiences based on your existing customers or things like that. That will help you scale your campaign as well as driving new but also relevant users to your site.
Amazing, thank you. And what are the recommended ad units throughout this festive season?
Sure, I can pick this up as I've just talked through it. So to be honest, it totally depends on a number of factors. Firstly, you'd have to think about what you actually want to achieve from your campaign, like what are your overall goals and objectives, and feed that back with your reps so they can look into that with you. And from that, I'd also think, like, what channel or channels are going to work best? Have you got a strategy in mind with regards to brand awareness following like a level of retargeting? And also, what raw assets have you got available already, so that we can actually work with you to develop something that's going to like have the impact that we want it to. It's a real case by case basis, I'm afraid to say. There's no like one size fits all. But another thing to also keep in mind is turnaround times. Like, do you need to be live in 2 days, or have we got 2 weeks or 5 days? You know, have that in mind as well when you're looking at what you want to look at, because that will then enable us to advise you best when it comes to what we think is actually going to be strategically beneficial for you, and also time wise, what's realistic.
Great, thank you. And what is our retail offering like? What inventory can I access?
I'll pick this up again. So retail offering, I mean, in regards to inventory available, we are, as I said at the start, we're connected to all the major SSPs and exchanges. We can work with you on specific like PMP requests if that's something that you want to look at. But again, we're across multiple channels. So in regards to our scale and our accessibility, like the world's your oyster in that sense to a degree, and we are at a global level. So it would be a case of understanding maybe not necessarily just what inventory you're available, but actually looking at what audience you want to go after. We are still in a world where we have the cookie, so there's a lot of opportunities outside of just pure contextual and environmental basis where we can look at the behaviors of your audience and be able to reach them to make your campaign as cost efficient and successful as possible.
And do you offer any services to help create and personalize seasonal ads, for example, retail seasonal ads?
Yes, so obviously we've got a creative studio, which are the team that very much lead the front of the ad units that I walked you through the development of the likes of dynamic retargeting. So they can be there very much working with myself and your team on anything from ad consultancy. So let's say you're like working on a pitch or a proposal or plan, and you want to have some ideas and a bit of a brainstorm. If you've got, let's say, social ads and you want to adapt them for native and you need support on that, we might be able to connect and help you on that side of things. And then also, yeah, with regards to actually whether it's from scratch or editing and improving what you've got currently, we can very much help you with regards to creating those seasonal elements. You know, lots of clients use us to make sure their content's fresh throughout the season. Maybe your sales offerings change, the products you want to push change, but the template might stay the same. So we're able to kind of help and adapt in that way as well. But that's really all part of the partnership and the added value of working with StackAdapt.
Amazing. And how should we measure the success of retail campaigns? So a question about measurements, really.
I can hop on this one. I do love to chat about measurements. So the most obvious, metrics, I guess, or areas of measurement that you would want to be looking at for retail campaigns specifically, especially in the festive season, is probably going to be those cost-based metrics. So, cost per acquisition, return on ad spend. But again, you really want to make sure before you start kind of looking at those metrics, this is where you really want to make sure that your attribution model, that you understand how it works, and again, that your site is being tracked properly before you kind of start digging into those CPAs, ROAS, etc. Because if it's not set up properly, you won't be seeing the results that you want to be seeing. So that's the first one. All those kind of cost-based metrics. But on top of that, you also want to be looking at some of those upper funnel metrics, right? So let's say you've launched your campaign, and again, those kind of lower funnel cost-based metrics aren't looking so good. You probably want to have a look at, what is your traffic to site looking like? Have we managed to increase traffic to site during the festive holiday? But on top of looking at traffic to site, you want to make sure that it's a relevant audience too, right? So looking at your on-site engagement, are users visiting multiple pages? Are your bounce rates looking healthy? On the lower side, obviously, if all of those metrics, aren't looking too great, those lower funnel cost metrics probably won't meet your expectations either. Just for information with the StackIt platform, you can also associate, static or dynamic revenue to conversion events. So that would be one way to make sure that you're accurately tracking, return on ad spend or CPA, for example, or even revenue coming in from these conversions. And then finally, one other thing that you might want to consider, as well as looking at those kind of upper funnel metrics like traffic to site, unique reach, on-site engagement, things like that. You could also look at having some online and offline measurement as well. So, tracking your website for those on-site sales, and then maybe considering some footfall studies to see if maybe your programmatic campaigns have helped to increase, incremental foot traffic to your actual stores as well.
Great. And one last question about privacy. What solution do you provide to handle customer data and privacy concerns?
I'll take this one as well. I love talking about contextual. Measurement and contextual are my two favorite areas to chat about. Couple different solutions within our platform. Obviously, we have contextual targeting, so page context AI or keyword rule matching, depending on what kind of contextual strategy you want to follow. So one of them isn't necessarily a one-to-one keyword matching, but you feed in specific keywords and phrases, and the platform will then derive, the context that is best suited to those keywords. The other one is keyword matching. So if you want to be really, really specific about what keywords are appearing in an article to determine if you're or not you're going to serve an ad, that would probably be the tactic you want to lean on. For first-party data, we do have a direct integration with LiveRamp. So this essentially allows you to upload your CRM audiences directly into the platform. It gets sent off to LiveRamp, and all of that data is hashed. So StackIt doesn't ever come into contact with your, that identifiable data when it comes to your users. And then just on the creative front, again, I'm just going to call back a little bit to that zero-party data that I've mentioned before. Using some of those HTML5 creatives would be a really great way for you to start kind of collecting some zero-party data when it comes to, your customers' preferences or even areas of interest or of research that they're looking into. You can pixelate all the buttons in those creatives and basically create, retargeting audiences in that manner. Again, without necessarily tying that back to personal or identifiable data points.
So we just have 1 minute left. I see one more question. What kind of ads are more catchy online? Are banners or quizzes or videos? What would you recommend?
I can pick this up. So with that in mind, again, happy to speak to you offline in regards to this, because it would just depend on what it is that you're looking to achieve from your ads again. So if you're, if it's more about just getting people to engage with your brand, or if you're looking to actually drive a really strong call to action, then I would advise different formats based on different criteria. So happy to catch up with you offline, whoever's asked this question, and be able to actually talk through the right opportunities based on your needs.
Amazing. So thank you so much once again, Kat and Reina. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you all for attending today. We hope you found it both informative and insightful. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with a recording to all registrants. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any other question you may have. And thanks again for joining us. Like I said, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day ahead.